Okay, Ira, you were at practice. Is it a Brock Glenn game? Is that what we're headed towards?
Brock Glenn's taken, I think, the lion's share of the first team reps, but Luke Krumnock is getting reps too.
Nice. That's exciting. I mean that. That's legitimately exciting.
Each got reps. I don't know, man. It's hard to say. It's a 1-4 football team, so it's like, nothing. It's not like it's going to magically get better just because you change Brock Glenn. And that was kind of the point when we had the conversation last week. Is I don't, I think you just always assume there's a button to push. There's a lot of things wrong with this team, and so I think Brock would give you more mobility. He's got ability. He's obviously an athletic kid, but to think that the offense is just going to hum when it hasn't hummed, it hasn't been all DJ's fault. I don't know that Brock Glenn's going to change the fact that the running game's not any good, or the fact that you don't have receivers that can get a lot of separation. So I think it's going to be no matter who's a quarterback, I think it's going to be a tough go.
Well, I think it's a brutal go for this. I mean, this seems almost criminal to have him roll out there in his first game to be against Clemson this year. It's a nightmare. Yes, I don't think it's going to make a difference in terms of the W column. I think they're going to lose the game no matter. Hell, they could have Fran Tarkenton starting this week, although he is dead. They could have him start this week in his prime, and it wouldn't make a difference against Clemson. I do think it can help open some things up in the running game because of the mobility that you're speaking about. Could change the math a little bit. This is what we thought weeks ago and wanted to see, but none of us have thought that this would be a cure-all. I did something, fellas. I don't know. Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment. You guys tell me.
Go back and watch some games?
Yeah.
Which one?
Oh,
the Orange Bowl? Did you go back and watch that?
No, I didn't do that. That would be something. No. I actually went back a couple of years ago. I went back to the Florida State-Louisville game. I've gone back to a few of these games along the way because, and I'll tell you why I did it. It seems to me that, we, for more than this year, dating back to last year, there was a stagnant element to this offense. There were things that were beginning to kind of grow stale within the offense. And I wanted to see how much of that is my perception, how much of that was skewed by this year's ineptitudes, which is bountiful, right? I mean, we're seeing an all-time bad offense right now as it pertains to Florida State football. So I thought, okay, well, I wasn't in love with the offense last year. I said that on the air in the midst of a 13-0 season. I said, especially in the second half of the season, I felt like, we're pretty predictable. The run game has really been bogged down. It's a little frustrating. Obviously, it helps when you have some NFL wide receivers and a kid who's been in the offense and really understood it at quarterback, could check into right protections and get the ball out, those kinds of things. But the offense still wasn't humming last year. It was pretty pedestrian. And when you go back, man, we are scheming things up for Cam McDonald for 35-yard chunk plays. There was a lot of imagination, and I felt like maybe it was born out of desperation, sort of this, we know we don't have the horses where we need them, and so we're going to have to come up with something that really allows us to create some offense. And that's where Mike was really praised, because you looked back at that and you thought, man, how in the world? Go back to when Clemson with DJ at quarterback beat Florida State here in Tallahassee. I went into that game thinking there was zero chance Florida State was going to be able to run the ball against that front. And yet it was in that game that they ran the ball very well, despite not having really an advantage anywhere on the field. And so when you go through the exercise of watching this offense from a couple of years ago to where we are now, I do think I can't pinpoint why it happened, but I think Mike clearly has let some things slip here that we're not seeing the same sort of imagination within this offense. And that it shows up on film, and that leads to more questions. I don't have a great answer, but I wonder why. Why has that happened? Like, did he get complacent? Did he just think maybe Jordan bailed him out of some things? Maybe having a pro wide receiver bailed him out of some things. I don't know. Maybe going 13-0 or 10 and winning 10 games. But something happened. They're not nearly as imaginative. So it is the Brock Glenn era underway starting this Saturday, we believe.
Here's the thing. You asked me about Brock earlier. Listen, man, I think the two biggest things he brings to a football team right now in this point of his career are he does have the mobility.
Yep.
And he's got a desire. Like you can see that if you walked out to a Florida State football practice tomorrow and the first thing you saw was Brock Glenn, you'd be like, okay, that kid wants it. Like that.
Good.
So you've got that going for you. Whether or not he's gonna be able to like run the offense and like hit big plays, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Norvell knows. Norvell made a comment today when he was asked about him if you watch his YouTube from after practice, he said something like, we're working on different schemes. Like, I really think they're trying to figure out, like, what can they do that he can do?
Find 25 plays
against that defense.
Well, that may be a problem. Yeah. You may not be able to decipher what he can do using this game as the example.
Well, and then the other question is, does the defense play like they had played the last couple games, or do they pick up where they left off at the end of the SMU game? It's just, man, this is the reality of sucking in football is, and we've talked about it before, if you're a baseball player and your team's not very good and you go to baseball practice,
you still have to put up numbers.
Hey, well, it's still fun to play baseball.
Yeah.
Even on a bad team, like, field the ball that comes to you, take BP.
Yeah.
Like, none of that's
You also need your numbers because in free agency, you're going to have to get paid. Yeah.
But football practice kind of sucks when you're good. So you got to go through football practice, which sucks, to go play Saturday and get embarrassed. That's where they are right now. And so, man, it's going to be a challenge for them to even play, to me, other than, again, going to some of these younger guys that the future's ahead of them. It's going to be hard to get guys to even play at the level they've been playing, I think. I think that's going to be a challenge.
Ira, what did you make, Ira, of watching the press conference with Norvell afterwards on Tuesday? Every question that he was asked about Brock Glenn, he mentioned Luke Kromenhoek. Every single one. It was not, I like what Brock's doing. He's working really hard. He would say that, and then he'd go, but there's an opportunity for both of those guys, and I hope they've been working hard. They had a solid day. Luke looked good too. Luke brings that too. I thought that was interesting and telling. It's not all about Brock Glenn.
No, he did it again today too. Look, man, I think that's going to be something he's got to deal with, because part of the issue with, I've always felt like the beauty of this situation, if it had worked out, if they got it right, we can sit back and say, obviously, DJ was a miss in terms of fitting with this system. But if it had worked,
it's too early to say that, Ira.
If it had worked out, what would have been nice was you would have had a full year for Luke to be in the offense, Brock to have a second year in the offense, and then them have a real competition next spring, and Trevor Jackson too. But now you've got to put Brock out there, probably, you'd assume. He hasn't said Brock's definitely going to be the guy. Like you said, theoretically it could be Luke. It wouldn't surprise me if you gave Luke some chances to play, but you also don't want to burn his red shirt for this season. So, we'll see how that plays out.
The final 4 games, maybe. And then you play him.
But yeah, I think it could be one of two things, Corey. It's either like making sure everybody understands that Brock is not like in a different league from Luke, and also maybe not trying to put too much pressure on Brock, because, man, not going to be the savior.
I feel for either quarterback that has to go out there behind this line and this offense, the way it's currently, broken, not working, designed, however you want to describe it, is going to be tough on anybody. It's especially going to be tough when you can't block the best defensive line in the league, which is what's going to happen Saturday night. I hate that this is the opportunity. This is the moment. You couldn't have done this before, after the bye week going against Memphis. But that said, here it is. And I would think, because of what you've mentioned before, and I tend to agree with you, that's a competition. Luke seems to me to have the greater upside. So if you're playing for next year and you're playing for the future of the program, you're going to need to see both, really. You're going to want both engaged. You're going to want to see those guys compete. Brock has a slight advantage because he's been here longer. And so I would think we move forward in that way. Like, again, I know coaches think about, how do I win the next game? Mike said that when he was asked about the quarterback and asked about preparations. I'm trying to think about right now. I'm trying to think about, how do we win the next game? Most coaches tend to think that way. Certainly fans and many of us in media aren't looking at this season as anything but lost. And they want to know what next year is going to look like in the year after, and can you save it? Can you get this back on track somehow, some way? And if that's not with DJ, then you want to see the other two or the other three even. And I think that, yeah, man, it's hard to watch a game in which you're trailing by 34 and then call it like you're looking to see something from Luke, like you're looking to see something from, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Hey, I'm down 38-0, but I'm not really worried about that right now. How does he run this? That's tough to do. But I kind of think that that's what he's going to have to do at some point, and it may start this weekend, because I don't think that they're going to have a lead against Clemson.
Well, the other thing, though, is one of the things we've talked about was sticking with DJ was because we felt like it does give you the best chance. If we felt like it gave you the best chance to win the next game, like you said. The problem is, if you're getting blown out by SMU, then what does it matter?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no more.
Yeah, they can't score points either. I mean, like you can tell if you're him, you can think that, and you can tell everybody that. But man, you're averaging 15.5 points a game.
15.2, right?
15 points. Yeah. So you're averaging 15.
Jeff, get it right. They're not. It's not
that.
15.5. Are you crazy?
So you're averaging 15.2 points per game. Sorry, I mean, start somebody else. You can't do worse than that.
But to the point you made, I'm sorry, Corey. I was just going to say to the point you made earlier about being creative, like the fact it's just so weird that there hasn't been a Wildcat or just something.
Very strange. It's stagnant.